If you can't tell by the way people are dressed around here, it is getting really cold in the city. Hey guys, we are in Stockholm. I am right in front of the Swedish Maritime Heritage Museum. It's absolutely random. I've never actually been to this museum. I am here because it is situated 5 minutes away from the office where I used to work. And as we are about to go back to our boat in Curacao for what will be our 3rd season, I thought that this would be a great opportunity to ask one of the questions that our friends here in town ask us the most, which is, how the hell did you go from knowing nothing about sailing to living on board your boat and becoming full-time liveaboard sailors, cruisers, you name it? Because you see, 5 years ago, it's not only that I had never been on a sailboat, or neither for that matter. My main interest at that time mostly revolved around shopping, meeting fun people in fun places, and thinking about designer shoes or handbags that I could never afford. You would have looked at me and you would be like, this person does not belong on a boat. Which is why, when I started to tell my friends that this was our plan with Ryan, this guy that I had met on Tinder 3 months before, well, my friends had a good laugh. To be honest with you, it's still a little unclear how the whole thing happened. And as I am standing here 5 minutes away from my former office, a place where I spent most of my days pretending that I enjoyed my work without actually being successful at it, either the pretending part or the work itself, I thought that this would be the perfect opportunity to share with you everything that I've learned about going from -1000 on the sailor scale to living full-time and traveling the world on Ryan and I's boat. And now guys, we're going back inside because I am freezing! It's so cold! You know, now that I think about it, it makes total sense that the minute Ryan asked me if I was interested in moving on a boat to go sail in warmer climates, I was like, yes please. Okay, but back to the topic of this video. I took my laptop here because I've written down all of my best tips, everything. It's a lot to go through. So let's do it! Okay, so it goes without saying, but if you're exploring the idea to leave and travel full-time on a sailboat without zero experience of being on a boat, the first step for you is probably to figure out if you and the people that you want to do it with can stand being on a boat and maybe operate the thing. At the time that Ryan and I started to think about quitting our jobs to buy a boat and sail the world, we had met on Tinder 3 months before and we hadn't been on a sailboat, we had never lived together, so what we decided to do was to try and look for a school that would reproduce the cruising environment as much as possible. So with that in mind, we contacted a bunch of sailing schools around Europe and told them about our goals, and we settled on a school that allowed us to live on board while we were taking the course and gave us a 2 weeks experience of learning how to sail and living on the boat. Unfortunately, our instructors are now retired, but I'm sure that there are a lot of schools around the world that would offer similar experiences. So if you guys watching this video have any tips on a really good sailing school that you know about, leave it in the comment section below so that it helps newbies. Thank you! Going through our course was a very intense experience. We made a lot of mistakes, we had a few mishaps, including me on the first night on board, waking up in the middle of the night and banging my head against the ceiling, collecting my very first black eye that I carried with me for the rest of the course. So before the course was even over, Ryan and I were convinced that we could take the next step of our plan, which was buying a boat, because at some point you are probably going to have to do that. When we bought our sailboat, Ryan and I knew maybe a little too little about boats. Our only experience of boats were brand new boats that we saw at the Stockholm's boat show, a few listings that we had seen online, and the sailboat that we had learned on, which was a Jeannot 36. But with that said, it did not prevent us from buying the boat that we started to sail on and that we are still cruising with. We personally settled on a Beneteau Oceanis 40 from 2007, 2 cabins version that we named Pour le Ciel. Almost 5 years after having bought our boat, we're still convinced that it's a great boat. Beneteaus are simple, they are affordable, they are easy to sail, easy to maintain, pretty forgiving. Beneteaus come at all prices. It's an old boat brand. You can get Beneteaus that are 30 to 40 years old and Beneteaus that are obviously a lot newer and a lot more expensive than the one that we have. Our boat costs £78,000, which is about 90,000 euros, I think. And the only reason we could buy that boat is because the housing market in Stockholm was good at that time. We were able to sell my apartment and borrow against Ryan's. We get really lucky on that one. The good news is that there are boats for literally all budgets, and we're gonna go back to that in a further section of this video. So I'll keep it short here. We made an entire live session about choosing, buying a cruising boat, but just know that you can cruise on any budget. We once met a Swedish guy who had bought his boat for 5,000 euros and he sailed all the way from the west coast of Sweden to the Pacific. Once he was done, he sold his boat, and I think for the same amount of money. So there's a cruising boat for everybody. At this stage of the planning of your sailing adventure, you probably have a little bit better understanding of sailboats. So here are my top 5 tips if you are in the process of buying a boat. Again, it's a very vast topic, but those are my 5 cents. First off, when you buy a sailboat, look for a really good former owner. So you want to know that the person who took care of the boat before you took really good care of her. If I were to buy another used boat today, I would take the former owner for drinks or for dinner, and we would talk about how they've upgraded the boat, how they've sailed the boat, potential incidents that they may have, and their general philosophy of maintenance. That could save you a lot of trouble and money when you get your boat and realize that maybe she wasn't taken care of as well as you would personally do it. On that note, Ryan and I would probably not buy an ex-chartered boat. Not that charter boats are not well maintained, but they're not... How do I put that in a nice way? We've seen a lot of chartered boats over the 2 years that we've been sailing between the Med and the Caribbean, and I would not want to buy a charter boat. Now, I do believe that they are a good option if you're on a budget. Maybe it allows you to get something a little bit bigger, but be very, very thorough when you inspect the boat. And with that said, my number 2 tips is to hire a surveyor. Now, this video is for people who start from scratch, and I know that a lot of our audience knows a lot about boats, and I know that a lot of people choose to buy their boats without a surveyor. But when Ryan and I bought ours and we knew so little, we hired a surveyor, and all the information that we had in the survey were so valuable. It really helped us understand what was good and less good about our boat. Mostly she was in good shape. And it also gave us a solid ground onto which building our maintenance plan. So right from the get-go, we had a good understanding of what needed to be taken care of. It's a small amount of money that could save you a lot of hassle. Here's my 3rd tip. If you can afford it, buy a little bit bigger. A bit bigger boat may be intimidating when you have 0 experience, but you will build that experience. You will grow with your boat. The boat doesn't grow. Space is the only thing that you cannot retrofit on the boat. You can literally change everything about your boat you cannot by yourself size. If there is one thing that I wish we had done different, is that I wish we had 45 foot. Yeah, what can I say? Now, maybe you want to keep your boat small. Small is great, it's a little bit cheaper, and the maintenance is also cheaper and easier, but that is something I would personally have done. Okay, so tip number 4 in the buying a boat section is buy a boat that can get you out on the water as soon as possible. Buying a project boat may look a little bit cheaper, but you may end up spending a lot more time and money in the yard than actually living your sailing adventure. Ryan and I bought a boat that was pretty good from the get-go, and I'm so grateful that we could decide ourselves when we were going to depart, and not having our departure date dictated by the state of the boat. Tip number 5 for new boats. If you're looking at buying a new boat, Ryan and I do not recommend financing them through a charter program. Maybe it works really well for some people, but we've had friends who've done it and had really bad experiences with it. Maybe it works for some. The same way, if you are buying a brand new boat, make sure that you have an excellent relationship with your dealer. A lot of friends of ours who bought brand new boats from a very famous catamaran brands that we will not name here ended up having a lot of problem with service after delivery. And when you take delivery of your boat and literally you have to spend your first 1 or 2 years dealing with issues and arguing with your dealer, it's not a great situation. With that said, if you are in Sweden, contact Jacob at Yacht Sale. He's awesome. We're not sponsored by Yacht Sale. We've actually bought very few things from Yacht Sale, but they've always welcomed us and we've always had amazing customer service, even when we knew nothing about boats. Now, if you start from scratch, you may hear the term blue water cruising boat. And here's my take on this. Typically, sailing boats considered blue water cruising sailboats are boats with a center cockpit and that are maybe a little sturdier. Our sailing instructor would call them chunkier, a little more. And I don't think that in the world of boat design there is a very specific definition of what a blue water sailing boat is. If there is, please enlighten me. But what Ryan and I have found over the last 2 years that we've been living on our boat is that our boat is much more a house than it is a sailing vessel. For one day that we spend at sea, we spend about a week to 10 days on anchor or in a harbor. At the end of the day, humans have crossed the Atlantic on all types of vessels, ranging from super sturdy cargoes to floating barrels and floating cars. I'm not encouraging you to cruise on a floating van, but just putting things in perspective. Ultimately, the perfect boat is a compromise between what you want and what you can afford. Meaning, it does not exist. Besides, buying a boat can take quite some time. It took Ryan and I 2 months and multiple offers placed on boats before our offer was accepted. And I think that's actually pretty fast. We know people who've been looking for boats for 1.5, 2, or even 3 years, and even more. The good news is that when you are in this phase of planning your sailing adventure, meaning looking for the boats, there are a lot of things that you can do to continue preparing. And one of those things is to build up experience. Because let's face it, you are not going to buy a boat fresh out of sailing school and set sail across the Atlantic on your own. And if you are, please don't. I'm gonna say something that maybe people think is a little bit controversial, but crossing the Atlantic with zero experience on your new boat without somebody qualified on board is not epic. It's dangerous and reckless. For the sake of your own life and the life of other boats around you that may have to come and rescue you, please refrain. To build up experience, you can crew on other people's boats. There are a lot of websites out there to find crew opportunities. Boats looking for crew don't necessarily always look for crew with experience. We personally prefer somebody who has zero experience of sailing but comes on board with a really positive attitude and eager to learn, rather than having somebody on board who has tons and tons of experience but a really shitty attitude. Regardless of how much time you're spending building up experience, when you leave the dock to go on your sailing adventure and you start your life as a full-time liveaboard, the learning curve is very steep. And that's what the sailing life is all about. You are never done learning. Some of the most successful cruisers that we've met are extremely humble people that can learn from everything. Well, sometimes learning in your sailing life can be frustrating. Okay, Ryan, we've been through this many times. You know, many times we've had to pull the wires. You can have some frustrating experiences. Okay, current toilet situation. Happens a lot. Just stay chill.
5-minute job always takes way longer than it should.
Everybody makes mistake. Just learn from it, move on, everything's fine. One good thing that you can do for yourself in the planning phase of your sailing adventure is to build a community of like-minded people, of sailors and cruisers or former cruisers. When Ryan and I learned how to sail and build up experience, we didn't know people, and so whenever a mistake would happen or we would have a big mishap, we would feel really bad about it and beat ourselves up. What we've learned after is that everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through the growing pains. So never hesitate to reach out to your sailing club, to your cruising club. This is an ideal place for you to make contacts and find friends and maybe sounding boards. People that you can ask questions to or tell about your experiences. All that to say that the cruising community is a lot closer to you than you may realize. Okay, so another thing that you will need in order for you to be successful in actually leaving the dock is somewhat of a financial plan. Now, there are two misconceptions when it comes to money and the sailing life. The first one is that you need a lot of money in order to start cruising, and trust me, if this was the case, I would have been owning those designer handbags. The second one is that you need to have 100% of your financial plan completely figured out, down to all the details, and that you will have to stick to it. And I'm not suggesting that you leave the dock without a financial plan, rather that you need to have more flexibility with it. Budgeting is a topic that I could talk about for hours, and one day I will make a video about it. My absolute best tip for budgeting for your sailing adventure is to thoroughly itemize each and every single expense that you think you will have to make in order to achieve your dream. You calculate the total, you take that number, you multiply it by 2 if you're conservative. If you know that you have a little bit of a spending a bit, multiply it by 3 or 4. You'll thank me later. Again, when you start from scratch, it is very difficult to know exactly how you are going to spend and how much. You can watch all the sailing YouTube videos about budgeting for a sailing adventure, you can read all the books, but at the end of the day, you will buy a boat that has specific needs. You will maybe realize that you need to make certain upgrades that you had not planned for. And when Ryan and I ourselves went through that exercise of thinking about a budget and actually spending the money, there were enormous disparities. So be flexible with your budget, overcalculate, and as long as you get out on the water, you will be fine. And you'll be like, but Sophie, how do you even make the money? Glad you asked. You really have two options for financing your sailing adventure. One can be to save an amount that allows you to live without working during the duration of your voyage, or you can work and make an income on the go. Because at the end of the day, you do not need a job, you need a source of income, and those are very different things. Ryan and I ended up with a mix of money that we had saved during our 2 last years of working and working remotely. And because I know you will ask, Ryan had skills from his aviation consultancy background, and he started his own little business and started looking for clients a couple of years before we left the dock. A year before we left the dock, I also quit my job and started my own little company in which I provide services in the areas of digital marketing, social media marketing, content marketing. And if you're asking yourself, what kind of job could I do remotely? Because the job that I have right now does not translate to an obvious remote job. Well, I would answer that if 2020 has brought us something, it is a way broader acceptance of remote work. And if you need a little bit of inspiration as to what you could do, you can check out websites such as remote.co, remote.io, skipthedrive.com, and Pangyan. Okay, so now you know how to sail, you have a boat, you have built up experience, you have a financial plan, it is time to quit your job! And honestly, that is the hardest part. Maybe not just quitting your job, but breaking away from the system, from what you know, from living in a house, from knowing exactly how you earn money, how you spend money, how you live, how you sleep, how you eat. Everything is about to change. And it's scary. And I'm telling you this, when I quit my job, I had a much better understanding of my failure to enjoy it or even be good at it. And my resignation happened to coincide with my boss making a comment during my annual assessment about how I should improve my sense of hierarchy and learn to stay in my place. That obviously made things a lot easier for me to quit. And even though I felt a sense of relief, joy, I also felt absolutely panicked because the first 3 months I didn't have a salary that was in my bank account at the end of the month. Having a hard time breaking away from where you are in life right now can also look like not wanting to say goodbye to friends or not wanting to stay away from family. And honestly, of everything that we had to do in order to pursue our sailing life, that was the hardest. But there is a silver lining. I found that past the emotional roller coaster, I actually asked myself, why did I not do it sooner? But there is no way around the emotional roller coaster. Just email me when you need counsel. I'm here for you. Alright, and just like that, my friend, you have everything you need to start your sailing adventure. That is obviously after you've taken care of everything logistic, selling the car, moving out of the house, getting rid of belongings. I honestly don't remember exactly all the things that we had to do the week before we left the dock, but I remember that it was extremely overwhelming. But once you're in this place where everything is pretty much figured out, you're free from your work, you have your boat, you have a little bit of experience, just leave the dock. You will never be fully mentally ready. Your boat will never be completely fully equipped or upgraded the way that you wanted it to be. Just consider this. You can always upgrade your boat on the go. Polar Seal looks nothing like she did when we left Stockholm 2 years ago. Also, on the day that you depart, you do not need to go far. You just need to cast off the line and leave the harbor. Our own departure was extremely anticlimactic. We cast off the line one morning, I think at 8 a.m. We went 15 nautical miles down the coast. We were all over the place emotionally. I botched a drone landing and oh yeah, and then on the day that we were supposed to leave that place, we had to turn back anyways. It was but it's okay, because now you left the dock. And now you're officially on your sailing adventure! Congratulations! Man, I don't know how this video is gonna turn out, but I hope that you're getting something out of it. Okay, so I hear you asking me, because that's what my friend asks me all the time when I try to convince them to join us. But Sophie, what about my partner? If your dream is to sail at least parts of the world and your partner isn't quite convinced, pause this video, pass him or her the device, and then press play. Sailing the world is much more than just operating a wind-powered boat. You will travel to places that most people on Earth will never see. You will experience local culture in a way that tourists will never be able to. You will meet extraordinary people from all over the world and make friends for life. You will eat the most delicious food. You will have sundowners with your friends every night if you want. You will go out of your comfort zone and grow as a person in ways that you didn't even know were possible. And at the end of the day, you will learn that you are capable of much more than you believe. And yeah, I mean, there is the occasional suck, not gonna lie, but I mean, no life is perfect. When my designer shoes and handbags obsessed self considered leaving the dock for the first time 5 years ago, I thought that this experience would profoundly change me as a person. That I would become a better version of myself, less shallow. Haha! No, I didn't change a bit. I didn't become a better person, I think. I still love designer shoes and handbags. I still cannot afford them. And to be fair, I was never going to become rich with my office job, and I'm certainly not rich now. But my life is rich. My life has never been richer. It is rich in experience, in amazing people that I've met all around the world and through YouTube. Hi! I have learned to be grateful for what it is that I have when I have it. I have learned to be more patient, more kind with myself and with other people. I have become slightly less materialistic. And even though I would still not call myself a sailor, I will award myself the title of yachty. It's cold, but once you're in there, it's... Well, this has been fun. If you are still watching this video, something tells me that you want to do it. I see you. You only have one life. Just do it. When Ryan and I first considered quitting our jobs and sailing full-time, I looked at my life and I was like, I could continue to go to my work every day for the rest of my life and be perfectly fine, I guess. Or I could have this very fun adventure. And I asked myself, what is the story that I want to tell about my life to, I guess, kids? So, what's the story you want to tell? Yes, I actually made this video in a very selfish goal of coercing you to come join us on Anchor so that I have more people to have sundowners with. Hope you come. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you get a little something out of it. If you did, consider subscribing. We have some really fun adventures to come. I cannot believe that we're about to start our 3rd season. And if everything goes according to plan, it's going to be absolutely epic. Leave us a comment if you have any question, drop us an email, although please be nice, be kind to us. We're not the best at answering emails. We'll do our best, but maybe we should do a Q&A. Maybe we should just do a Q&A. Guys, wherever you are in the world, have a great day and I hope to see you at sea. Bye!